It really comes back to you. I so strongly believe the energy that we put out, what we emit, it comes back to us in ways that we can't expect. So be a person that's willing to celebrate others. Be a person that starts to celebrate yourself. This moment, from whatever your past is, you don't have to bring that forward with you. If you don't like who you've been, if you don't like what you're living, you can still change it. If you're still listening right now, if you're still breathing, and if you can hear us, you still have time. And time is the greatest luxury in life. So if you allow yourself that time to actually move closer to what you want, focus on that, because that you can change your entire life. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you've experienced up until this point. Life is the journey. Life is learning. And I think for so long when I was younger, I almost chased this final point of like, if I just get here, if I just have the relationship, if I just have the career success I want, if I just have X, Y, and Z, then I will finally feel the way I want to feel. And really what I kind of did 6 years ago in my life and what flipped everything on its head is I kind of scrapped that. And I was like, no, I need to start with the internal. I need to start with what do I actually want to experience? How do I want to feel? And instead of trying to make my life look a certain way based off of what I thought was eventually going to get me those feelings, I actually allowed myself to start to tap in and start to connect to how I wanted to feel the excitement and the joy and the passion and everything else. And what I've found is in many ways my life maybe looks different than I thought that it was supposed to look when I was younger, I thought was going to be the way that made me the most happy. But now it actually feels how I've always wanted it to feel. And I think that's what each of us as a person is after, is the feeling first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said that we come up with this idea of what we think the external is supposed to look like that's going to lead to that feeling. But I've found in my life 99.9% of the time, it's never exactly what I think it will be. But one thing that I've been practicing a lot is like being okay with that, right? Like staying open and curious to what actually is meant to be in my life rather than projecting that should or that previous desire and trying to force that so much when it clearly is, when there's clearly resistance there.
Yep.
Or when clearly another path is feeling a lot more aligned now. I love that idea that like, okay, listen to that feeling instead of forcing that external.
Yeah, for sure. And what you're describing takes staying really present with ourselves, because I also think for myself along the journey so far, there are so many different points and periods where I almost was like, this is it. This is what it's all about. Like, this is the message or the core or something. And in hindsight, I'm like, oh, wow, you had no idea back then. Like, no, you needed this chapter. You had to learn. It changed you. It shaped you. It grew you. It gave you a part of the larger puzzle of what you're kind of building. But it wasn't meant to be forever. And even I remember like there was a period probably like 5-6 years ago as well, kind of on my journey, where I feel like I had all these big ideas. And there are a lot of things actually I still know that I'll do in this life. And there are things that I think there's a timing and a cadence to all of this. But it almost was like I got the inspiration and I'd like run to everyone in my life being like, this is what I'm doing. This is my purpose. This is my path. And it was like every 2 months it changed. And I feel like I got to a point of that, of surrendering more deeply to it, of like, look, this is what I'm currently living. This is what I'm currently experiencing. This is what feels authentic to myself. And really, I think more than anything, I just try to live in integrity with myself and in connection with myself day to day. And that looks different every day. But now I'm a little less maybe certain in how I say things sometimes, of what things are going to turn into, because I've really come to see that the universe can divert us and pivot us in ways that we can't even imagine. And although it didn't always make sense to me at the time, in hindsight, every single one of those types of moves led to greater and to better and to more of what I wanted than my mind could have ever created. So I feel like I've really learned to surrender into that and trust it. But it's experience gives us the confidence and the comfort to kind of lean into it more.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, 1,000,000%. I'm so glad you brought this up, because funny enough, it's something that my mom shares with me a lot, because I'll get really excited about the podcast, right? And I'll share that with my parents and everyone in my life. And my mom, having a lot more wisdom and having lived a lot more life than I have, reminds me all the time that, you know, Camille, you think it's the podcast right now, but what if it's a book? What if it's something else that actually is going to be like your big thing, or the thing that actually you're going to resonate even more with? Like, stay open to what this can turn into. This might just be a stepping stone, or it might be your thing, but like, just stay open to this idea that you don't have to have tunnel vision on this one thing. And what also
Absolutely.
comes to mind is the idea that we're just constantly evolving human beings. So naturally, as we're evolving and growing, our external is going to evolve and grow. So yeah, it's the podcast for both of us right now. But a year from now, what if it is like a book I'm writing? Or what if it is like coaching clients or traveling or something else that really aligns with who I've become and evolved into? And I think one thing that we need to do as we're staying open and curious to what that looks like in each of our lives is detaching from that identity, from having such a strict idea of what that needs to look like what our lives need to look like.
For sure. It brings me all back to the feeling, right? It really brings me back to if you follow what inspires you, if you follow what actually feels exciting to you, there are breadcrumbs there. You never fully know what it is before you walk there, but there's something there that will give you a token or a piece of what you actually want. And so, yeah, I think the real vulnerability of staying as open as what you and I are kind of pointing to and describing right now is that puts each of us in this very kind of seemingly uncertain place potentially in our minds, which can be a really vulnerable place to others or a really vulnerable place to be able to talk about of, look, this is my current thing, but I'm open in a way where I can be pulled or I can go anywhere else. And I personally, at this point, because I've experienced it enough, I really see uncertainty as the magic that leads to our wildest hopes and dreams and everything we want. But I think until we kind of cross a certain point in ourselves, uncertainty can feel very fear provoking. We oftentimes will then expect or imagine the worst. To me, actually, I have a small tattoo on my wrist. My mother hates it when she found it, but it says "What if?" because about 3 or 4 years ago, I was in London at the time for the summer, and there was just every day I sat down to journal, I found myself writing "What if?" But usually people follow that sentence with what if this goes wrong? What if the worst happens? And
Mm-hmm.
I was following it with all of the opposite. I was following it with what if my wildest dreams come true? What if everything I want happens? What if better than I can imagine is out there? And I really used it at the time as this lead in and this question to expand my consciousness, expand my horizon of what I believe to be true or what I believe to be possible for both myself, for others, for the world. And I really followed it up of if I just let myself get to the edge of what I believe is possible, if I just push that boundary a little bit more in my own imagination or my own thinking, what else is out there? And what I've really found is if you allow yourself to daydream and to wonder and to go with the thoughts that seem crazier than we could ever imagine, the ones that when they come to us, although they feel so good and they spark that excitement, it's almost like our minds want to push them away and say, no, you're being delusional. No, you're being crazy. Yeah, that can happen, but never for you. And I've really learned that you have to think in those ways. You have to allow yourself to believe it. You really have to allow yourself to expect it even. And it's something that I believe each of us can train ourselves into by feeding our thoughts, feeding our emotions more towards actually focusing on and giving life to what we want.
Absolutely. First of all, I love that. What if? I think that's so
Good.
beautiful. And I think the coolest thing about it is it's so open ended, right? Like you can end that sentence in a way that is inspiring and exciting,
Mm-hmm.
or you can end that sentence like, what if everything goes wrong? And what if my biggest fear comes to the surface? And what if I fail? Like, blah, blah, blah. You can choose which lens you want to see it through. I think it really all comes down to mindset. One of the biggest things that truly impacts my mindset and that I think is something that we don't always consider is who we're surrounding ourselves by and the messages and narratives that we're allowing in, right?
Yep.
I can think of certain people that I surround myself by where I feel really confident. I feel really supported. I feel like I open my eyes to all these amazing possibilities and like my dreams are supported and I feel really excited to share things with them. And then there's other people where I don't feel like I want to share things at all because maybe in the past they've kind of like poo pooed on my dreams or like, kind of projected maybe their limiting beliefs
Mm-hmm.
onto me and has kind of dulled and lowered my ability to really dream and think bigger
Yep.
because they might be stuck in thinking small. And it's amazing how that truly can impact your level of thinking, like what you're absorbing from how other people think. And it could be society too, but I think it really also is coming from the people that you're really close with in life and who you see on a day to day, whether that be coworkers, whether that be family or friends, it really makes a difference. And I can just tell that when I have a conversation with someone who, like BC, our mutual friend BC, who I
Yeah.
hope listens to this, he truly has this ability to open your eyes to endless possibility and just like give you a boost and lift you up and encourage you and be like, you should feel so proud of what you're doing and feel so proud of yourself, you know? And it's amazing how impactful that can be. Whereas there's plenty of people who might react in a totally different way and say, oh, but is that realistic? Or like, oh, but don't you want like to just like stay in your current job because that might like be more stable and like, but what if that fails, you know? And,
Yeah.
and kind of just like immediately pulls you down and just like kills that
Yeah.
sparkle and excitement.
1000%. It's really our people around us giving life to our dreams, our life to our desires? Or are they adding into our own mind doubt or resistance, right? And the truth of this
Mm.
is we have to believe it. So if anyone speaks doubt into my mind, for instance, over a big dream that I have, the only way I could ever agree with it or give voice or give kind of light to that is if there's a part of me that agrees with them, if there's a part of me that actually believes what they say is true. This is why I think so much of this journey is really returning to the inner work, is really getting even stronger and more confident in self, where you can be sitting in a room, you can speak whatever it is that you love, that you want, of where you're going, and you can hear all of the other voices. Because for any of us in life, there's always going to be those echoes of voices of fear, of doubt, of you can't do this, you're not good enough, whether it's our own voice that confirms it or whether it's just a voice outside of ourselves. And I think the main indication or the main thing of what to trust and follow in this is literally kind of what you touched on is how do you feel? Does it feel like you're alive and like you have life and like you're lit up when you leave that conversation? Can you see more of the person that you can actually step into? Or is it the opposite? Are you focusing on why it won't work? Are you focusing on the lack? Are you focusing on that? And so I think it's really being super connected to ourselves in the way that we know how we feel, because our intuition, our energy, we have a guidance, we have a system within ourselves that literally gives us the information, gives us the answers as to whether this thought that I'm believing, this thought that I'm giving my power to, is actually serving me, or whether it's not serving me, and that's not my soul, that's something else, which if that's true, I don't want to listen to that because that's not going to lead me closer to what I actually want. But
Mm.
it is true in this path, and BC, he's one of the most amazing people because he is so truly selfless and giving and believes in everyone and uplifts everyone so deeply. And I was going to say with that, the way that that is true for any individual is kind of the level of depth that you met yourself on, right? Like we have to reach and touch these places in ourselves. If someone, to the point that you're making of the projection and things, if someone doesn't believe in themselves, if they don't think that they can have all of the things that they love in life and the things that set their heart and their soul on fire, of course they're not going to think that you can have it, right? And so this is really,
Mm.
I think, where people kind of mirror to us their own thinking. And it's also, you attract your tribe and it's like draw closer. I used to be someone that really wanted to I'd say fix in my past, fix others or convince them of why this is possible, why they can have it. And I think I've really come to find it's no, just stay true to yourself in such a deep way, but then align with the people that actually want to bring you up, because the relationships that it's a two-way street between, look, Camille, I love you. I want to shine a light on you. I want to celebrate you. Whatever it is that you dream of, how can I help you? And the ones then that come back in that way, I've just found that creates an energy, a power, a magnetism that if we were to try to do it all by ourselves in life, we would never experience and it would never feel as good. So I think really finding the voices that are there to uplift you and vice versa are so important.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. You said something that really, really resonated with me. This idea that we can't force things upon people and we can't change people. They have to
Yeah.
want to change. And then if they are open to change and receiving inspiration, then that's great. But they have to be open to it, right? And it's so funny. In the beginning of starting this podcast, I was doing the exact same thing. I was like, I'm going to force growth upon everyone. Like they are going to grow and evolve and this is going to be fantastic. And it really didn't go well. I learned this lesson that oh, you can't force people to be ready to change and grow and evolve.
No.
It's why so many relationships don't work, because there might be one person that's on this growth journey, and then the partner, the other person might not be there yet, you know?
Yeah.
Or like a lot of the friends that I was trying to get to listen to the podcast and be supportive and kind of go on this journey with me, I was like, oh yeah, they're going to be so supportive. It's going to be great. And it's funny because I didn't see a lot of that support early on when I really wanted it from friends. And I think two things were happening. A, I think certain people project certain limiting beliefs onto you when you want someone's support, or when you're doing something that's a bit like different and nuanced and outside of the box and might be something that they're not comfortable with. They might project that onto you by like not supporting it, right? But I think also a huge one I've realized, especially lately, is like not everyone likes growth and self-development. Like you have to seek it out. You can't force these deep, authentic, and real conversations onto people. And I see now that I'm at fault for a lot of that, because that's what I was trying to do. And it was a really powerful lesson to learn, because what it did was it allowed me to no longer take it so personally when someone that I love and really value wasn't really all about fulfilled, wasn't really all about my podcast. Because I was initially taking it so personally, making it about me. Like, why don't they like me? Like, why aren't they supporting my dreams?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And literally a coworker who's also a friend said to me, I was like, hey, why haven't you listened to the podcast yet? Just like super kindly, just curious, like I would love to know. And she literally looks at me, she's like, can I be fully honest? I'm just not really ready to grow and like go there yet. And I'm like, wow, that's self-awareness. And also, thank you. Like, thank you
Yeah.
so much, because now I can get out of my
Yeah.
head and like that really, really opened my eyes
I
to the
love
fact
that.
that like we can't change people and we can't force things upon people in our lives.
Yeah.
Quick little interruption here. If this episode is resonating with you, if you want to start to take steps towards a life that really feels aligned, towards a life that you love, one that's filled with things that you want, if you feel inspired to explore connecting with me in a coaching call, check out my website linked below. Set up a time with me. Let's connect. I would love to learn more about your life and support you through this journey. All right, let's get back to the episode.
I love that. And that's so beautiful that she was that vulnerable and could actually have that level of awareness to say that to you directly, because most people wouldn't be aware of it, or they wouldn't even want to acknowledge it if they were aware of it. And so that was such a gift that she was able to give you, that kind of allowed you to let go because you kind of had an understanding that previously you didn't. But yeah, it's a hard lesson to learn. Honestly, this is one that took me years of my life, if I'm completely honest with it, where I think that there was so many points where I almost wanted to like drag other people along on the journey with me, or I felt like I had the answers of the things that if they followed it, and maybe there's a level of truth to that it would change their life and they would experience what they want. But we're really all on different paths and we're on different timelines. And I think a large part of like being a good maybe presence in someone's life or friend even to them is giving them the freedom to find that themselves. I think there is a level of like, obviously not supporting things that we know is outright harming someone. But I think on the other, it's having enough trust in them that they'll find their way. And I think that there's a real balance to learn to that. And yeah, and your point that this isn't an easy journey. It's always one. It's so interesting. I always say that like I was walking this path no matter what. Like there is something in me that was so set in the direction that I've headed and that I'm heading that I didn't care what it took. I didn't care how many friends I had to lose. I didn't care what in my life had to break apart. I didn't care about every emotion I had to feel. I just wanted to be completely free. And I wanted to serve the purpose of what I'm now really stepping into. And I think it takes a very specific wiring in a person to actually have that be true for them. I think it takes a very specific mental, emotional, and otherwise makeup to actually be willing to have something within themselves, maybe a calling from their own soul, a deeper sense of purpose, something that they feel, a vision unseen, that they're willing to walk that path. They're willing to go where they haven't been led before. And that brings up a lot of challenges and a lot of scary things where it's like you just want people to come along. But I think the most beautiful part of that is, and I guarantee if this hasn't already happened in your life, it will, is there always ends up being the full circle moment where so many of those people that didn't get what you were up to or thought that it was weird or judged you for it or thought that it was crazy, they'll start coming. They'll start being like, hey, like, you seem really happy. Or like, hey, actually, what is this podcast? Like, I'm kind of curious now. And you just start to experience that. And once you start to experience that, I found in my own life, like, once it even just started to happen with like a couple people, literally outweighed however many was like saying the opposite thing. It's so amazing how I think sometimes we just need like a tiny little spark of what is leading us in the right direction to outweigh all of the negativity or all of the things or people or voices that are trying to pull us the other direction.
Absolutely. It's easy to want to focus on those few people in your life that aren't supportive, or maybe the few points of criticism that you receive, right? Instead of all of the wonderful support along the way as a protection mechanism. I think that's very normal, especially if you're a human being. I don't even know where I was going there. Like
That's
every
it.
single one of us does that, right? Yeah, that's it. So all of us. But I think our perspective of our lives and how we feel in our lives, again, like we were saying earlier, really just comes down to mindset. What are we choosing to focus on? Are we choosing to focus on that one friend that's not being supportive or that you lost along the way?
Yeah.
Or are you going to focus on the 5 amazing new friends that that's created space for? Are you focusing on the one negative comment? Or are you going to focus on all the 10 other comments that are saying that you're killing it, and the people that are proud of you and how beautiful you are inside and out? Like, we often focus on what's wrong in life, but we can focus on what's positive in life and that support that we're receiving while still moving forward. That was a narrative I got stuck in for a long time. Like, oh, but if I get too comfortable or happy right now and complacent in my journey and feel too proud of myself, then I'm going to lose my motivation to keep going and to keep growing. Like, there's something within me that was like, yeah, well, you can't feel happy yet, because then you're not going to be as motivated to work as hard. And I'm really unlearning that, because what a sad way to live. Like, I can be happy while pursuing something I love and following my purpose and continuing down this beautiful growth journey. I don't ever want to stop growing, but I also want to feel happiness every day. And I've learned how to live with both. Like, we can have both. And actually, I've found that I show up in my passion and purpose, like fulfilled what I'm doing here, much better when I come from a happy place. Like, a few months ago, I've spoken to in a couple episodes, like, I went through a really hard time. And this is something we can speak to too, because I know that you agree with this, that the hard times are here to mold us and they're here for a reason. And it's led me to these beautiful changes in life with making this move and wonderful things that are happening in my life. And that hard time spurred that. But it's interesting when I reflect on how I showed up to the podcast then, when I was coming from a place of lacking that spark and not feeling happy and not really being open to joy and happiness so much, versus now when I feel that energy and spark, I feel so much more inspired and so much more creative and so much more aligned. So I think being open to that happiness helps you feel more aligned in what you are actually doing. And I guess all of that to say, like, we can grow and be productive while also enjoying and loving the journey and letting ourselves feel happy.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely a both and. I always see life as like, fasten your seatbelt before helping others. Tend to yourself. If we don't have a full cup, if we don't have energy to give, if we're crying or screaming on the inside and we're not listening to those hurt parts of ourselves, we'll never have the true presence or as much to give to others. So I really see the path of purpose actually being for people, the ones that choose to focus on themselves most, the ones that actually choose to connect with parts of themselves or heal parts of themselves, so that then they can give it to the world. Then they can show up in a different energy and give others the permission, give others the invitation into that. Because I think for both of us, one of the most amazing parts of this journey is when you have such deep personal experiences for what living the opposite is. So if we're using this as an example of like feeling this joy and this passion and this excitement to show up, it's like, great, both of us knew when it felt the exact opposite of that. When it felt like there was everyone kind of against us, where it felt hard, where it felt awkward, where it felt uncomfortable. Fill in as many other things as you want about that. But actually, that also allows us to see everyone else that we can help in different ways, right? Because it's like, I've been in your shoes. And personally, for myself, that's one of the biggest things that fuels me and drives me, is like imagining someone out there like the past version of myself that still thought in all of these ways, that was still worried about what others thought of her, that still was trying to confine myself and fit myself into a box, that didn't want to be too big of a presence or shine too brightly in a room, that wanted to, again, X, Y, and Z. And whenever I think of that version of me, that just drives me and motivates me and propels me so much more. So I think to your point, you definitely won't lose motivation. That is for sure. I actually think that it only comes stronger and stronger. But something I'm really feeling in you at the moment, which is super exciting, is I feel like you're at this pivotal, almost like turning of a page in your life. Like I really feel like you're entering in to this entirely different energy and chapter. And I know you've been doing the podcast already for a year, but there's something in you. Like I just feel like it's almost this like butterfly that is broken out of a cocoon. And I feel like you have come into your true life and your true essence and purpose just in a way that you haven't before. And you're just, it's going to grow and grow and grow and become so much more magnetic and so much more powerful. And a thought that came to me in this feeling of this transition period for you is, I forget the exact quote, but it's something like, you're not afraid of, it's the gist that basically what we're actually afraid of as people is how truly powerful we are. And I feel that for you, it's like, and it's you just get over that little hump and it's like, wait, I'm that powerful. I can make this impact, or I can, whatever it is, have whatever I want, experience whatever I want. So it's, yeah, I'm really excited. I feel like you're in such a fun and exciting chapter of your life.
Well, first of all, Tegan, I'm going to cry out here. Thank you for the kind words. And I appreciate that a lot, because the interesting thing is we've only known each other for 30 minutes chatting on this call, but you can just sense people's energy.
Yeah.
And I'm receiving similarly like a very just positive and authentic and genuine energy from you, which makes me very certain that you are also on this aligned path and serving others. And I think one really difficult thing about what we're doing when we show up here is this idea of being really authentic and vulnerable. And I know it's something that we've both had to really break through in order to feel aligned and to truly serve. And I think it would be helpful for people listening for us to share a little bit about that experience, because when you truly do show up authentically and reveal that vulnerable side, it can feel really uncomfortable because there is always rejection mixed in there.
Yep.
And when your authentic self gets rejected by certain people, it just like hits harder. But I also really appreciate what you've acknowledged, because just recently, coming out of this more difficult time in life that I was feeling, I've felt like I have really not given a shit about what other people think in this like new beautiful way.
I love that so
if
much.
I can say beautiful in the same sentence as not give a shit, but it's true. Like I thought that I didn't give a shit like a year ago or 6 months ago, but like now I really don't. And then it's interesting because a year from now, I'm going to be like, oh, I thought I didn't care, but now I really don't care. And this idea came to mind the other day, the idea that like we can say we don't care what other people think, and then we can actually really embody not caring what other people think. And I did an interview yesterday or just a few days ago with this guy, Ben Hart, and he said like something that I believe to be very true. Like we all care what other people think, but I think the difference is we can care and we can let it affect what we do and what we choose to not do. So I think my past self was like letting other people's opinions and judgments dictate what I did and how I lived my life.
Yep.
And now it's like, of course I care. Of course I'm going to feel upset when a friend's not supportive, or of course I'm going to get upset if I don't get that validation from a certain video or post or something like that. Like, again, we're human. But the difference is I don't let it stop me. In fact, I let it fuel me, because I'm like, this is me practicing being my own biggest supporter, and like, look at me go, you know? And I, for some reason, have just felt this like resilience and confidence and just like embracing of that lately, of just being authentic despite other people's projections. And I would love to hear your experience about this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think to your point of the not giving the shit, I think it just kind of grows and grows and grows until it's like there's just nothing left that you give a shit about. And then
until we die, and then we really don't give a shit.
Yeah, well, and then there's just freedom, like, because I feel like I'm at this point in my life where it's like I really, and again, it will be ongoing, but I really just don't give a shit, where it's like whatever I want to do at this point, I am free and happy to do it, and it's one of the best feelings because it's not dependent on the fear of like, well, what is the response going to be, or what is this going to be? But it's a massive challenge. Like learning to actually listen to yourself, learning to trust your own inner voice that for each of us always knows the path and always knows the way. We are conditioned on such deep levels. And the thing is, the more aware each of us become, the more we go on this journey, naturally there are going to be fewer and fewer people along the road that really get our way of thinking, that have experienced something similar in themselves. And so I really parallel a lot of this journey of whether we want to call it awakening or coming into our true self or authenticity or whatever. It's like, okay, great. For at the very start of my journey, it's like I had this first remembrance, this first spark of something. And it's like, oh my God, it was this big aha moment realization in my life. And it almost, the analogy I could give is like if my entire life I thought that I was like, I don't know, this person, right? It's like, oh wow, wait, you're not her. You're all of this. And it was like me seeing my own soul. And it almost was like because everyone around me still thought of themselves in the same way, that reaffirmed all of the old patterns, all of the old narratives, all of the old conditioning, right? Because it's like, wait, no, this isn't true. But then everyone tells you it's true. So it's almost like my entire life, this is going to sound like a super silly example, but it will make it more obvious because it's so exaggerated. It's almost like my entire life, I thought I was a duck. And it's like everyone around me also thinks they're a duck. And then it's like, okay, great. I realize I'm not a duck. But then it's like, I'm not yet sure what I am. And this is kind of a rebirth journey in my eyes of like actually discovering what's authentic to us versus what we're conditioned to be. And then it's like, great, actually, I'm a unicorn. I'm not a duck. But then it's once you get to a certain point where you are so clear in yourself, every single person around you that you meet in life can tell you you're a duck. And if you know you're a unicorn, it doesn't matter any of those voices because you are so solid in the fact that it is literally as crazy as me being like, Camille, you're a duck. You're like, no, I'm a human taken. I'm not a duck. Like it becomes that absurd, certain belief systems. Like it doesn't penetrate and it doesn't enter anymore. But I think that to me, such a big part of this path is getting comfortable with ourselves in all states and all sides of ourselves. I used to be someone, you could definitely use the word perfectionist, but it's also like I wanted to be the really strong and powerful sides of myself. Like, admittedly, in my past before I went on this whole journey, like I had a lot of outward success in the way that people celebrate or the world celebrates of awards or titles or any of that. And to me, that's not what matters at this point. But I think that it took a real bridging or breaking apart of my identity to be like, this isn't who you are, right? It was like allowing myself to fail and to fail in big ways and allowing myself to be really awkward, allowing myself to be really bad at something. And so I think learning to accept ourselves, easier said than done, but in all states and all sides of ourselves, when we're at that top of the mountain and we've reached the final point, we've reached the big success, but also in the face planting and the falling down and having enough like trust in ourselves, but also really like self-love, like being able to hold out and reach out a hand and pick that version of ourselves up and tell her that like you're gonna make it there. You will get there. It's kind of like I really see it as this little girl or little boy within us. It's like, how do we be our own mentor? How do we be our own guide? How do we encourage and celebrate and support that one along the way? Because anytime we want to look at her and be like, you're not doing enough. Why'd you do it this way? Like it's the judging voice that comes in or it's any of that. That's only going to cause us to shut down. That's only going to cause us to close up and become more contracted. And so really the path to change, the path to like opening up, the path to authenticity is love. It's by encouraging ourselves. It's by allowing ourselves. It's by meeting ourselves with greater presence versus trying to force ourselves into change.
Yeah, no, literally my jaw's on the floor. I couldn't agree more. And it's sad that we do talk to ourselves in that way, right? Like it is really effective to think about the fact that like imagine that you're saying that to your sweet, cute young childhood self. Like why are you talking to them that way? But it's because we've just been habitually doing it our entire lives. So I think the first step is unlearning speaking to ourselves that way. And one big thing I do is affirmations. Like I find it really helpful and I actually feel like as stupid as they felt in the beginning, like they have transformed the way that I talk to myself in my head. Because if you do them long enough, that's going to be your new habit. You're going to talk to yourself as your biggest supporter. But I love this idea that you shared about how you no longer need to have other people give you that validation and approval and acknowledgement so much about who you are. once you take the journey to actually understand who you are and love who you are. And I think that's kind of the key to authenticity is, okay, once you actually embrace who you are authentically and beyond that, love who you are authentically. And I know it's cheesy and I know that's like a very high level thing, but once you feel at your core, like, this is who I am, and I'm going to love myself by showing up as this person. Like, that is a true form of self-love, is showing up authentically in your relationships, in your pursuits, in your endeavors, and expressing that unique, authentic side of you. I think that's the biggest form of self-love, because you're showing the world who you are and telling the world, I'm proud of who I am and I love who I am. And quite vulnerably, like, yeah, when I started the podcast and started showing up on social media, I don't think I did fully love who I was. And I'm still working through this, like this idea that like it's hard to show up really authentically when you might not fully love and accept and appreciate who you are, because that the judgment and projections from others when you don't feel fully confident in yourself hits harder, because we kind of cling to that and take that to mean something because we're not fully there internally. But on the flip side, I notice when I am feeling really confident, when I am feeling really aligned and really love who I am. So like, again, these last few months, I've been feeling a lot more of that. I feel this confidence and motivation to show up more authentically. And I feel less of that resistance to do so, because I don't need to let the external judgments and projections really impact that, because it's stronger within me.
Absolutely. And I love that. And it really, to your point of, look, none of us are going to be in our most confident, lit up, excited, magnetic state all of the time. This is kind of the learning like journey of what we talked about earlier. And we're going to have experiences that hurt us and reach a deeper trauma that we need to feel and heal and all of that. But your level of authenticity to be able to say, hey, I don't feel this way all the time. That is, to me, what makes you so authentic, right? What makes us so authentic is being able to have the honesty of what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling at the moment. It's that deep level of connection to self. And actually, that's one of the biggest things I think I've learned about being authentic is owning exactly where I am, whatever the feeling is, whatever I'm thinking, versus trying to be something else, versus trying to push it away. And there's a really funny or really interesting thing that happens with ownership. As soon as it's almost like people want to project this onto you. So whatever it is, it's like, great, you're confident, they see it as self-absorbed. It's almost like if you can just own it, if you actually are just like, yeah, you're right, I am this way. What are you going to do about it? You change the power. Like, it's so shocking for people sometimes in conversation where it's like you actually give in to where they want to go with it. And you're like, okay, sure, yeah. And it's like you just see them like face plant and stumble. It's one of my favorite things to do with people in conversations, because like they don't know what to do, and then they get so triggered, and then they hate me, and they like try to walk themselves deeper into it. And it's like, you signed up for the wrong person, because I'm down to like go into this with you. But it's really, I think a lot of also that kind of power or ownership is removing the ability from anyone else around yourself to make you feel less than, to make you feel not good enough, to make you feel like you need to be different. And it is a thing that we just have to practice. Like, literally the way that each of us unlock this is by continuing to bring ourselves back to it, because there's going to be moments that we do it, and then it's going to be like, oh my God, you just learned all of this. Now you're doing the pattern again. Like, why are you doing this? And you're just going to have to go through that cycle and kind of let it out of your system. And that's the growth. That's the learning, again, that we've chatted about.
Yeah, absolutely. We can relearn the same lesson over and over again. And I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because I think every single one of us has certain lessons that we're put on this earth to learn. And one of my very close friends who I went to visit recently in Madrid, I haven't seen her for over 10 years. And she was my childhood best friend growing up. We reconnected in this like very deep and special way. And we had these really great conversations. And she opened my eyes to this idea that every one of us has our own karmic path and karmic purpose, I guess. I'll have to get the exact wording from her. I think karmic path. And what that means is like your path and purpose is different than mine. Even though we're in the same space, like doing a podcast, we're in very similar like phases in life as one another right now. We have entirely different karmic paths. We're meant to learn different lessons or similar lessons, but on a different timeline. And like one lesson that came to mind is my mom says this all the time, that she's put on this earth to learn patience. Like, she just knows she's relearning that lesson every single day through so many different experiences.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think about all the time because on this podcast journey, learning patience has been huge. But at other parts of life, I've been pushed to learn another lesson over and over again. Like another huge lesson this past year on this journey has been learning to not seek external validation and develop that confidence within. And I'm relearning it over and over again. And as I relearn it, I'm having to unlearn those old thoughts that weren't serving me. And I think that's such a cool part of this growth journey, cool and terrifying part of the growth journey, that like there isn't an end destination. And it's not like you learn one lesson and then like, congratulations, you're done. Here's your diploma. Unfortunately, we need to relearn these lessons over and over again. But the cool part about it is you get a little better at it every single time. This is like full circle, like the idea that every experience is here to teach you.
Mm-hmm.
And even though that experience and lesson might feel shitty, the next time you're faced with that in life, you're going to be that much better at it. And you're going to have a bit of a stronger muscle, right? To face it better next time, to handle it better next time. And so that's the cool part of the journey. It's like, it's not linear and it's not always clean. It's not perfect. It is messy, but it's all here to teach you and to mold you. And we're all here to learn different lessons on different timelines. So we can appreciate that we're all on a unique path, which also I find helps to compare less. At least I remind myself of that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the humility of it all too, right? It's like being able to laugh at ourselves because there's the times where it's almost like we can kind of have a little bit of an awareness of what we're doing, but we're not yet ready to let go of the pattern. We're not yet out of it yet. And so it's also having this humility to be like, I see what you're doing. You're going to change eventually. You're going to let go of this. You're going to get there. Live it out for now. Take your sweet time. You're going to get sick of it, and then you're going to stop doing it at a certain point. At least that's a lot of the approach I've learned with myself. But to your point, yeah, we all, in every single way, right? Like literally from down to our genes and our conditioning on like physical levels, our parents, all of that, to how we're conditioned, to how we're raised, to where we've lived, to who we've been surrounded by all of these unique experiences that shape us into exactly who we are today. I think that this understanding your story, understanding the unique things in your life that you felt that have hurt you, I think that is a large part of where each of us find our purpose. It's like, what have I specifically experienced? And so in my case, I think a lot of it was about fitting in and feeling like I needed to change who I was or conform who I was to find belonging or acceptance or love externally. Hint, it didn't actually work. And then I started to realize this and went a different direction in it. But I think understanding your unique experiences shapes your specific lens. And if you can actually kind of utilize that and capitalize on it, it really can propel you into your sense of true purpose, into your sense of this is why I'm here. I experienced all of this. This was really hard for me, but I needed to go through those experiences because this is what it has created in me. This is what it has shaped in me. Now I have this level of wisdom. Now I have this awareness that I can help other people that are in a similar position. And yeah, you can't, it's so much easier said than done, but the comparison is one of the biggest ways to distract ourselves, I think, from our actual path and from our actual purpose, is by over consuming and by overly seeing what everyone else is doing, because everyone has a different belief system. Right now, Google online, healthiest diet to eat. Someone's going to tell you to go vegan. Someone's going to tell you to go carnivore. Like, it could not be the most opposite ends of the spectrum. And so it's like, which is right, which works? And that's where it's up to each of us to experience and discover and to find our own truth. Because, yeah, the absolute truth is beyond our ability to express it as an individual. So I think it's the fun and the creativity of discovering who you are and what you love and allowing yourself to be seen and to express it in this world.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000,000%. And actually, this kind of transitions into one final topic that I think could put just like a beautiful bow on this conversation, is this idea of victim mindset. Because as you were saying, like our experiences and everything in our life has shaped us and has led us to where we are and who we are. And it's easy if you don't like yourself and if you're not happy with how your life is going to embody that victim mindset, to be like, oh, well, they're doing that and they're killing it because they had XYZ and I didn't have that. Or, oh, like I'm single because I got screwed over by like this person and like blah, blah, blah. And you can go on and on about all the ways that life has felt unfair. But then I encourage you to ask the question of, how is that serving you? Is that
Yeah.
going to change your life, or is it just going to like dim that view that you have on your life? Is it just going to make you feel even worse about your situation? So instead, we can practice that empowering mindset. It's like acknowledging, like, yeah, you're, like certain things were hard in life. Like
Yeah.
you're not super happy with where your life is at right now, and you have a lot of work to do, but let's look at that as exciting. Maybe that's going to fuel all this like great change that I'm ready to implement. Like let that fuel you. Don't let it discourage you and just make you feel like shit about your life and stay stuck.
Absolutely. I think it really is about what you just said, which is, does it keep us stuck, or does it actually allow us to move forward? Does it actually allow us to change something in ourselves that eventually, hopefully, we can change something in the world and builds a brighter, builds a better world? I think the part, though, that is really important for people to also let themselves acknowledge is life is unfair. Each of us have it in our own ways. Like the world, people have done wrong to us and have hurt us. And I think that if people refuse to accept that, it actually can delay them more from being able to rise into a position of true empowerment. You have to let yourself move through that pain and move through that hurt. And you're right. And you don't reach an answer with it, which is the really hard part. You don't reach a something of, because you didn't deserve it. It shouldn't have happened. But we're all in the world experiencing a certain level of the collective unconscious, and we're all responsible and take on different bits of that. And so I think that you have to let yourself feel it, have to let yourself process it and go into it. But then you just start to observe life, start to observe yourself, and you start to see what actually works and what doesn't work. And at a certain point, you get sick of your own shit. You get sick of the fact of, yes, I can blame someone, and it doesn't make me have to face what's hurting inside of myself or what's vulnerable inside of myself. But actually, it also prevents me from ever becoming the person that I actually want to become. It actually prevents me from living my wildest hopes and my wildest dreams. I really believe in life that whatever path we choose to walk, and each of us are free to walk whatever path we want, whether it's one that we believe is more purpose-oriented or it's one that is just keeping us small and keeping us there. That's our freedom. But I think that it's really a matter of what is more painful, or what is the pain that you're willing to face and you're willing to sit with? Because it's painful feeling the hurt and feeling what has been done to you by others, done to you by this world. But personally, in my own life, in my own experience, I think it's so much more painful never actually going after my biggest dreams. I think if I were 90 years old looking back on my life and I said, oh, wow, you were too afraid, so you played it safe. Oh, wow, you were too afraid of what others thought of you, so you did what was expected of you. To me, living with that type of regret and feeling and all of the what ifs of if I'd let myself live and be what I wanted to, that is like, I'm so much more afraid of that than I'm afraid of feeling every other hurt. And so I think it's a matter of, what are you willing to feel? And I think if you get still and get quiet with yourself, I think each of us kind of naturally have the answers come to us.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And it's easy to have that regretful thought too of like, oh, I should have done that differently, or I should have done it sooner, right? But again, that's just that victim mindset creeping back in. Like, it's not serving you. Yes, the first time to have gotten it right was last year or yesterday. The second best time is right now.
Yeah.
And this also ties back in the idea that like we are all on a different timeline and a karmic path.
Yeah.
And so the second you find yourself looking at someone else's timeline and wishing that that was yours, or looking at their life and wishing that was yours, you're dishonoring your authenticity and your karmic path. And it's something I'm constantly trying to work on. Again, none of us are perfect out here, but I just know every single person listening can resonate to that on some level in whatever is coming to mind for them.
Let yourself be inspired by it. If you see something in someone else, use that as motivation for why you can experience something similar. Like, let that be a light that actually guides you. Allow yourself to be uplifted by it all, because it really comes back to you. I so strongly believe the energy that we put out, what we emit, it comes back to us in ways that we can't expect. So be a person that's willing to celebrate others. Be a person that starts to celebrate yourself. And also, and I think this might be an amazing place to leave it, because it's a reminder for all of us at all times, but this moment, from whatever your past is, you don't have to bring that forward with you. If you don't like who you've been, if you don't like what you're living, you can still change it. if you're still listening right now, if you're still breathing, and if you can hear us, you still have time, and time is the greatest luxury in life. So if you allow yourself that time to actually move closer to what you want, focus on that, because that you can change your entire life. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you've experienced up until this point.
If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to press subscribe wherever you are listening for more realistic and relatable inspiration to live a more fulfilling life.